You're listening to Oppositional Forces. Bad guys for good reasons. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Oppositional Forces. I am your host, Scotty Don't, and with me today, a very special guest, aside from our giant frozen frost giant from the frozen north with lots of frozen and lots of snow. Mr. Frost, say hi.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey, hey. It sounded like
Yogi Bear.
no, what's the other one? The Albert.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, Fat Albert here.
I don't think you're allowed to call him Fat Albert anymore. That's
I don't care.
Obese Albert.
Obese Albert.
Morbidly obese Albert.
big, brave, and beautiful Albert.
Yeah.
Today, we have an incredibly special guest, one of my and Mr. Frost's mentors, teachers, that is Mr. Kevin Reeve, and we're going to bring him on here in a second. But before we get into that, I wanted to let you guys know a little bit about what we've been up to. As promised, we are in Austin, Texas, moving, shaking, getting things done. We've been out here helping Kevin with his classes this week, having a lot of fun. And we can't do that without your guys' support. Obviously, if you go to badguyforhire.com, you're going to find both our Patreon link and you're going to find the ability to subscribe to that Patreon. We ask that you guys do so. We harp about it, here, there, and everywhere. But it's because of people like you listening that allow us to pay for gas, to put lots of horrible things into our bodies like caffeine and nicotine.
Some nicotine.
And, it lets us do super cool things like this and to be able to have these wonderful guests. So we're going to do a quick cutout for our promo, and then we're going to bring on Mr. Reeve. All right, everyone, we're taking a brief moment to talk to you about one of our favorite sponsors. That's right. The Barber Collective is a Southern Utah mainstay, U.S. veteran owned with an elite team of classically trained barbers for you to get that dapper do, professional fade, or a cut on the wild side. Competitive pricing with walk-ins available. You won't walk out disappointed that you tried The Barber Collective. Call today and schedule your appointment. Mention Oppositional Forces and receive your first cut on us. You can schedule online at vagaro.com/barberco. That's VAGARO.com/BARBERCO. Or call them at 435-922-8454. That's 435-922-8454. That's the Barber Collective. Don't let that do you wrong. Go see them today. All right. So today, joining us from the wonderful Hyatt House in Austin, Texas, live and in person, Mr. Kevin Reeve. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's good to be here. All the way up on the 6th floor.
Yes. Yes, the 6th floor is quite the climb. I'm glad that I didn't have to do the escape from the room the other day and have to descend all those floors down the stairwell.
That sucked.
Yeah, because all the running around that we've been doing, I feel a little burned out.
It's an active class, so.
Yes, it is. So as I'm bringing you in here, I kind of want to give everybody at home the opportunity to be a little bit more familiar with you and kind of what you do, why you do it. So for those of you listening, Mr. Kevin Reeve, he's the founder and director of OnPoint Tactical Tracking School. Kevin has provided training to law enforcement, SAR teams, U.S. military, law enforcement in the arts of tracking, survival, escape and evasion, and urban operations. Prior to founding OnPoint Tactical, Kevin worked for a long time at one of the top tracking schools in America, and he worked there as the director of the program and responsible for the instructor staff that were there. So, I mean, it is an impressive laundry list of the people that you have influenced and interacted with in your lifetime. And Kevin, if you can, just give us maybe some of the groups that you've worked for and some of the projects that you've done.
Well, I've worked with a lot of military groups, various SEALs and Green Berets, and I've worked with various three-letter agencies. I've worked with authors and actors and actresses and rock stars. It's been kind of a Forrest Gump kind of life, you know. I've intersected with some very interesting people.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had the pleasure of being able to meet some of those interesting people, and been able to see how you do, basically how the sausage gets made. And I've been hooked ever since. We talk a lot about you and your classes here on the show, and a lot of the moving and shaking that we do is, you know, influenced and trained by a lot of the things that we've learned taking your courses.
Thank you. I appreciate the acknowledgement.
What drove you to start OnPoint and get this ball rolling that's become such a big
Well, I worked for several years for the Tom Brown Tracker School in New Jersey, and I was his tracking instructor. I was kind of his protege, and after a number of years, it was clear that I needed to go from being an apprentice to a journeyman, and with his encouragement, I went out and started OnPoint with the specific purpose of training military. It was post 9/11, and we figured that we could do some good, and so that is how we got started. Shortly after that, Hurricane Katrina hit, and it became pretty clear that the skills we were teaching, besides the tracking, but some of the survival stuff, would have great application in an urban environment with American civilians. So we started teaching civilians as well, and that is kind of where we started.
And I mean, when we talk about urban, I mean, we're talking big, scary cities.
Yeah, we're talking large cities: L.A., Philadelphia, Detroit. These are places that I've run the classes: Atlanta, Phoenix, Dallas. Here we are in Austin, Kansas City, Chicago. I've trained in all of the large cities in the country: Portland and Seattle. So yeah, it's we're talking big urban areas.
You've even been up to the big, what do they call them? The big little brother up north? I don't know what they call it. Canada?
Yeah. Yeah, I did Quebec. I did some classes in Quebec, and we did an urban escape and invasion up there. I've had some really interesting, really fun opportunities to meet some really great people. I mean, the greatest part about what I've done is the people that I've met along the way, such as yourself.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm humbled by the list of people who have been in and around your life and just been able to help out where I can.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy.
Mr. Frost and I, we work hard and we play hard, but it's all about the friends that we make along the way. So
that's exactly right.
So, I mean, there's kind of like two spirits to OnPoint. Mm-hmm. You've got the wilderness side and you have the urban side.
Correct.
Can you differentiate the two for us, and
Sure.
maybe a little bit of what each side does?
Well, the wilderness side is based on some of the stuff that I originally learned at Tracker School around the concept of a recon or a scout element that goes out and looks for and detects the presence of the enemy and gathers intel on a I guess you'd say a far more formal basis than I had originally learned, and brings that back to protect whatever community has sent them out. So it's all about being able to move around in the wilderness, observe, gather information and intelligence, and not be seen and not be heard. So the focus of the scout classes is on, not literal, but virtual invisibility, being able to just disappear, being able to leave no trace that anyone can discern, and to gather the information and then return with it. The urban side is based on the concept, the first one at least, that something like Katrina has happened and you're stuck in a city and you need the skills to get out, to get away, to escape, and to evade. And so it's an escape and evasion class that focuses on the skills and the talents and abilities that you need to escape from a city. So one is real wilderness based, the other is real urban based.
And I think I can't choose which side that I love more. As much as I hate being in the cold and the wet and the dirt, I absolutely love taking your courses.
I have the same issue when it's scout season and I'm doing the scout classes. There's nothing in the world better. And then when it's time to come to a place like Austin and do urban classes, there's nothing else that's better. So I have the best of both worlds. I really enjoy both aspects of what we do at OnPoint. So
when did you start seeing a need, having been at a tracker school, having done wilderness operation and survival, how did you see a need for the urban side, that was able to relate to the things like we talked about, like Katrina and disasters?
Well, I had a friend that was in the Israeli Defense Forces, and he told me that as things were developing in 2003, 2004, most everything that was happening in an urban environment in terms of military action. And so consequently, people that were where the need for escape and evasion was no longer out in the forest. If you got shot down over Bosnia, it was what happens if you get separated from your unit, or your checkpoint is overrun, or your convoy gets attacked. How do you escape and evade in a city? And as far as I know, nobody else had been teaching that. And in fact, it was something that we pioneered for several years before anything else like it showed up.
I mean, it kind of reminds me, it's very reminiscent of what you would get like going to the farm and learning like legitimate spycraft. In a lot of ways.
It is a lot of the similar skills. I mean, the guys that helped me kind of establish the baseline, some of them were ex-agency guys, special ops guys. And I asked everybody what would be involved if you were in a situation like this, what skills would you need? And it was kind of a brain trust that put together a list of skills. And fortunately, some of them I knew just from my misspent youth, things like lockpicking. And then I sought training from some of the best people out there. I mean, I trained in lockpicking with 3 or 4 of the very best lockpickers in the world. And, Matt Fiddler and David Storm and just some really, really top talent. So I've been fortunate to have really good mentors and to have really good advisors helping me create this original class.
I kind of feel like this escape and evasion class really opened my eyes to the executive protection world and the anti-kidnapping aspect of it when you have a high profile client or something like that. I think that this is something that should be really kind of pushed for a client that has to have that high value and has that high risk of being kidnapped, even if they choose not to have a security detail. At least having those skills is phenomenal. I mean, this past week, I haven't been through the urban side of things, and this past week going through the urban side of things, and it just opened my eyes dramatically.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
That reminds me. We were talking the other day, Kevin, and you had said that aside from the Urban E&E class, which is kind of the long form of what you do in a workshop for private individuals with escaping custody. Can you talk maybe a little bit about that other side that you offer?
Well, we do private classes for people. Like I've done a lot of executive training for people who work in high-risk environments. I worked with some mining executives that traveled regularly throughout Mexico. I've worked with investment companies in New York that travel all over the world and are sometimes in high-risk environments. I mean, it's not necessary. I mean, you don't have to go to Baghdad to be in a high-risk environment. You can be in Phoenix, Arizona, and you're more likely to be kidnapped than you are in Bogota, Colombia. So it's not just dangerous places, because the danger exists everywhere. And so we do, 3-4 hour seminars for individuals who want to learn how to not get kidnapped and what to do if they do get kidnapped.
And that's one of the things that interested me the most from the executive protection side and the security side that Mr. Frost and I are involved with. We've got so many people that we're involved with that have these high net worth individuals, celebrities, Fortune 500, type people that, they're constantly moving and shaking and traveling, and nobody's talking about this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. They talk about, my client's got anti-kidnapping insurance and their favorite movie is Man on Fire. Right. But they're not doing anything aside from, shooting classes and driving classes that gets them any more prepared for anti-kidnapping, or unlawful custody or detainment.
Right. And there are a lot of people that ought to be worried about that. I did work with a number of corrections officers who regularly, work in county prison or county jails, and when there's a riot or something like that, they always the guards always end up in their own handcuffs. And so I've taught, and that happens a lot with law enforcement. And so I've taught a lot of guys in law enforcement that how to not get tied up with their own gear. It's kind of embarrassing when it's like you don't want to be the guy that's handcuffed in the trunk of his own police car while the bad guy's driving off with your gun in his hand.
Right.
Well, and I think one of the most beneficial parts for me was when I first went through the class was learning about, not only, the baseline techniques, but also that gray man, and trying to blend into the environment so you don't become a target in the first place.
Right. So the most important skill we teach at OnPoint is awareness. We really focus heavily on avoiding situations by being aware rather than responding to situations after the fact. And so, we try and stay ahead of the curve by keeping our eyes and ears and other senses open to what's happening in the environment around us, being very sensitive to the changes that you talked about. And so if we are accomplishing anything, it's because we're teaching awareness, so that a situation avoided is much better than a situation fixed.
Yeah, that's too true. I mean, we harp all the time about, the what is it? The best fought win words. the fight you always win is the fight you never had. Something like that. And it's the same thing, with any kind of incident. The more prepared you are to avoid an incident, it doesn't matter how many seatbelts and airbags. If you can avoid the crash altogether with some driving skills, then,
That's right. So the seatbelts and the airbags protect you after the crash. Awareness protects you and prevents you from getting in the crash in the first place. So that's really the focus of a lot of our teaching.
Yeah, and I thought I knew a lot about situational awareness before, but it was almost like putting on those high vis, yellow lenses with the blue
blockers.
Yeah, with the blue blockers, and all of a sudden I saw the world in a whole nother light with so much more definition, having gone through many of your courses, because there's so many things that people miss out on while they're staring at their phones.
Without getting too esoteric here, a lot of a lot of where we draw from has to do with paying attention to native people and the way they interact with their environment. And they interact with their environment and they survive in a harsh environment by being extremely aware. The joke I would say about this is if you were, if I were to tell you that we're going on a hike and not to worry too much because there was a 180-pound mountain lion seen in the area, but he already fed on a human and he's not hungry now, how would that affect your awareness? The fact that there are predators out there should spike you. And the native people lived in a harsh environment. There was always something out there trying to kill them. And so they developed really good techniques for being aware. And what we've done is taken a lot of those techniques and applied them in an urban environment to make you much more wary and stealthy and capable of avoiding trouble. Most people are living in a little bubble called a cell phone or a smartphone, and they never get outside of that, and consequently they get preyed upon.
Yeah, it's crazy, when I'm out there and working these classes, to see what I'm doing and then recognize how totally internalized everybody else is.
Right.
They're so focused on themselves and what they're doing and how their hair is, that they don't even look 5 feet in front of them, to the inevitable incident that they're going to crash head into.
You see people walking into fountains or telephone poles all the time.
Yeah.
The buses here, I've noticed, it says heads up. It's not even on the signs anymore. It's on the buses of the number, and then it says heads up, watch where you're walking, don't walk into a bus.
Yeah.
It's like the front of the bus has to have that. How many times did somebody walk into a bus?
Yeah.
There's
it's funny how we have systems to compensate for things that it would be easily fixed if you just didn't, we have to put up signs to tell you not to, like I saw a pizza box that had a sign on it that said, a warning on it that said, open box before eating pizza.
right.
And you go, okay, well, why is that on there?
There's
Obviously, somebody tried to eat the pizza through the box.
there's got to be a cost benefit analysis done that's like, okay, we've had this happen enough times now that it's becoming,
I saw a dry cleaner hanger that had a paper wrapping on it, and it said, do not eat. Really? Okay. Some serious awareness involved in that.
Before you hand it to your toddler to start teething on, like, oh no, okay, not for baby.
Yeah.
That's right.
What's some of the crazier things that have happened in preparing for courses like this that have taught you, the lessons that you now bring to everybody else?
Well, I mean, I like to pride myself in being aware, and every time that I fail in that area, I have a wonderful spouse. I mean, seriously, just an amazing woman, but she is quick to alert me to the fact that I have failed in my awareness. And so she calls me at the time that happens, and it's been actually used in an advertisement, but for years she called me Captain Awareness. When I hit my head on something, way to go, Captain Awareness. And now they actually have a character on a TV ad, I think. Is it Captain Awareness? Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I do dumb things all the time, and I just look around and go, well, I hope nobody saw that. But, sometimes you learn from your mistakes, and hopefully you can teach other people the lessons of those mistakes. And that does happen.
Yeah. Kind of the apple on Newton's head aha moment.
Yeah, I've had a few of those. In wilderness survival, I've worked with knives for years and years and years. And so I can tell when I see someone handling a knife when they're going to cut themselves. and I'll always intervene and say, hey, you know what? You're about to cut yourself. And, they'll say, how did you know I was going to cut myself? And I show them the scars on my hand and go, yeah, this is a lesson that you'll learn the hard way.
Want to know how I got these scars?
22 stitches later.
I joke about it, but they say there are a couple of ways to learn martial arts. One way is through endless repetition, doing the same thing over and over. The other is through blunt force trauma, right? And I happen to have a third alternative, which is endless blunt force trauma. And that I do that to myself sometimes, but after a few knocks in the noggin, you start to say, "Well, I wonder why I do that. Why don't I stop that?" And that's what the awareness side of it teaches.
Yeah, I have to constantly work in and around Mr. Frost while he's directing me like a blind man. Like, hey, you missed your turn there, bud. Watch out for that snake there.
My wife and I have this ongoing joke about that, because if you're from the South and you're driving down the road, or you're riding down the road, and the guy that's driving misses his turn, you wait till after he misses the turn. You go, "Where are you going?" Whereas,
that's usually me.
Whereas, being like kind of hyper about that, I go, "Next turn, honey, next turn." Yeah. And get ahead of that curve. But, we let people flail sometimes. That's a good way to learn. Endless blunt force trauma.
Well, and now I like to try to explain away what I'm doing. Like I'm being unpredictable. I'm being hard to track.
I'm varying my pattern.
No.
Yes, I'm varying my route.
And I know it's not. It's because we're on some deep think conversation, or he's listening to some
I was
podcast.
Supposed to get off in Austin, and now we're in Baton Rouge.
Right.
How did that happen?
That'd have been really frustrating for us.
Yeah, me and Louisiana don't get along terribly well. It's too hot, too muggy.
I've had some time there too.
I'm always there when the power's off. So
Yep, I got you there.
Well, because you were in Katrina.
We not Katrina. We were down for Rita and Ivan, and we did a couple of them, and crazy times, boy. Whew.
Well, it's those experiences that educate your senses.
Yeah.
Being down in a austere environment, practicing the things in real time, that you've read about or learned about. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, okay, well, now we got to be about. And I think that's.
Well, I was talking about if you went out and you knew there was a man-eating mountain lion out there. Well, that's how it was in Baton Rouge. First night we were out there, we hear sporadic gunfire. Second night we hear a lot of gunfire and close. Third night we hear full-on firefights, and they're not that far away. And then suddenly, we better start really paying attention. I remember walking around with my friend Kelly at the time, and as he and I walked, we heard these just roaring, full auto AK-47 gun battles within half a mile of where we were staying, where we were patrolling. And I mean, I remember looking at him, and my eyes were bugging out of my head, and he goes, "Yep." So that kind of thing helps keep you aware. I mean, nothing like
the pucker effect for sure.
Pucker factor.
Yeah, that pucker effect.
Well, and nothing else solidifies the urgency to me that people learn these types of skills that OnPoint and via you offer, because it's any day. It's not like the sky starts to fall, the nukes are raining upon us. We're prepping for the end of times. This is practical application stuff for your local grid goes down.
Well, I mean, it could be a personal thing that you're walking through a bad section of town and you get into trouble. It could be a local thing where you're in Portland when crap hits the fan and people start doing stupid things, or it could be regional. The whole New Orleans area after Katrina, and then it could be national. We could see a huge national failure of some sort, a failure of the monetary system or a failure of the power grid. Texas had a big one last year when their power grid failed in the middle of winter.
And they got snow.
And they got cold and snow. Yeah. And so, what you're preparing for isn't really as important as the fact that you prepare. Our motto at OnPoint is that training trumps gear. And that it's better to be trained than anything else, because that allows you to adapt to any of those situations without a great deal of difficulty.
You hear that, fellow gear collectors?
Gear collectors, the PC term.
I am a gear geek. I mean, certifiable.
Yeah, most definitely. But I really see that with your courses of like, I really don't need all this stuff. Like, yeah. Our other partner, Mr. Valentine, is like, ounces contribute to pounds, and you start really thinking about that. But he's a gear junkie too, and I look at him and I'm like, you preach that, but you don't live that. Like, you have every piece of gear that you could imagine. He's got nods. He's got. Well, I mean, he looks like he could be like one of the guys off of a video game sometimes when I see him go out to train with some of those guys.
I'm a knife junkie, and so I have a tote in the garage filled with all my ex-mistresses.
I get it.
My wife and I have been married for 38 years, and we're happy and all that, but I cheat on my knives. And so I have lots of knives. I have lots of flashlights. I am a gear geek. There's stuff I really love having. But the reality is, if you took it all away, hopefully I have enough skills to not have to have those things. And that's where we want to get people. Because, you never know what the circumstances are going to be, but there are many circumstances where you will be found with what you have on your person at the time. You don't have a go bag. You don't have a bunker or anything like that. You just have, I got a flashlight and a pocket knife in my pocket. What am I going to make? What am I going to do with this? How am I going to make it through this?
Right. So you all know when you hear this, like, You can pick cuffs with a bobby pin. Thank your wife for leaving all those random bobby pins everywhere. Listen, I've had a few girlfriends, a few wives.
And now you're going to leave the bobby pins everywhere.
No, I will leave bobby pins. I'm not going to give away how they can be picked because I think that coming to one of Kevin's classes it's crucial.
Well, I have to laugh because every time I clean out the lint filter, I find bobby pins and barrettes that
folded and pinched pins, and
they're not my daughters. I have 4 daughters, and they're not the daughters. They're not my wives.
That's too funny. Yeah,
They've been modified.
I thought it was bad with me.
4 women, 3 daughters. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was trying to, I've been growing my hair out, and I've been avoiding things like, clips and hairpins and all that kind of stuff to keep it all, managed and not looking like a homeless person.
Sure.
But I remember now, what I'm doing with those and why I want them.
You wear a stocking cap to keep the hair out of your face, but
he could wear 4 different berets and the bobby pins, and
you could use some, and hide a bobby pin in your beard, for example.
Right.
Yeah, actually, I've got that tactical.
You told me that you did that
little hair clip that I tuck into there. I've put it away now, because we stopped messing with the cuffs and everything. But that's the problem is I'm one of those idiots is that I will remember and I'll be like, yes, I'm going to do this. And then for, a month, I'm rocking it. And, I'm getting asked the same question I asked you not long after I met you with, why do you carry 9 knives, Kevin? What did you tell me?
I usually have 4 knives on me, right? And I'm frequently asked, how come you carry 4 knives? And my answer is because I haven't figured out how to carry 10.
Right.
Yeah. And so, I'll be rocking all this stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm getting ready for bed. I'm start to download stuff. And I've got the whole nightstand is taken up with here's my fire starter and here's my backup to this and there's my firearm and there's my bobby pins.
He's one of my our old friend JC, I'll just use his initials, but he had a Batman utility belt that he took off every time he took his pants off to go to bed. I mean, it was loaded with.
I remember the Batman belt. Yeah, because it had all the things.
He had pouches all the way around. I teased him about it all the time. But I'm as addicted to that crap as anybody. But reality is, if you don't have it, what do you do?
Right.
If you don't have a fire striker, if you don't have a knife, if you don't have what are your alternatives? Your training. That's where the training takes over.
Yeah, that's what educates, your decision-making process.
Yep. You want to be able to start a fire, for example, with no man-made tools, without any knives, anything. You've got to be able to figure out how did the natives do it.
Pray to Thor. Wait for a lightning bolt.
That's right.
But as time goes on, and I don't want to get we try to be very non-political on the show, but as things seem to be descending into madness, one way or the other, left or right hand, I've felt a much greater sense of urgency to try to push people into this training.
Right.
Because
it's a good point. And see, I don't care what your political affiliations are. You're going to starve either way if you don't get the training.
Right.
Republicans and Democrats are both going to starve if they don't prepare for what's coming. And so, it's not a political thing for me. I just don't want people suffering if they don't have to. So a lot of our training is really about suffering mitigation. Taking away the fear that comes with, what we see coming.
Right.
Everybody I talk to, I ask this question all the time. Do you think things are more stable or less stable than they were 10 years ago? Nobody ever says, "Oh, yeah." I mean, I'm thinking things are great. Wow, we've really made some progress lately. No, everybody says, incrementally, that frog is getting cooked slowly. But, the wheels are coming off the bus just slowly. And eventually, the axle hits the pavement, and then that's where the skills come in. I don't care what you believe. I mean, I have trained as many of one side of the political spectrum as I have the other, easily. And so that's not the issue. The issue is, how do you take care of your family? We were talking earlier about, in class, we were talking about Matt Graham's Kill House rules. Rule number 1 is no one's coming to save you, right? And that's what we want people to understand. It's sitting on the roof of your house in the floodwaters of New Orleans. No one's going to be there to save you. If it's a widespread emergency of any kind, the government will be radically overwhelmed. We were talking with a student in this class about Hurricane Sandy. And after like 3 days without power, FEMA finally showed up in Lower Manhattan and opened up an office. And people lined up for blocks with empty gas cans and hoping for help. And when they got to the door and got inside, FEMA gave them paperwork to file insurance claims after the disaster is over. FEMA was not there to help them through the disaster.
Right.
How to recover from the disaster
So
after that.
the government doesn't care about you personally. They don't care. They don't give a crap about you personally. They care about maintaining their power and maintaining peace within that structure. So if you think they're going to take care of you, you got another thing coming.
Right, and that doesn't matter what political party you're a part of or who's in charge. Government's still government.
Yeah, and so it sounds like I'm anti-government. I'm kind of probably just anti. I'm really just pro-people. I want people to be able to take care of themselves.
Well, and personally responsible for what happens
Accept
to you.
responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that go. I would encourage everybody who hasn't ever looked at them to read the Kill House rules. What's rule number 1?
Nobody's coming to save you.
Nobody's coming to save you. What's rule number 2? Everything is your responsibility.
Extreme ownership. Shout out to Jocko.
Yeah, exactly.
Leaf Babin.
Yeah, and then the third one is save who needs to be saved. The fourth one is kill who needs to be killed, and the fifth one is always work the problem. I mean, I've never seen 5 points of a doctrine, if you want to call it that make more sense to me in this situation.
That's just life. I posted that after you first brought that to my attention. Mm-hmm. I posted that on our Facebook page because, I mean, that's just life. Keep working at it. If it's not working, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I struggled really hard with those handcuffs at first. The more I work at them, the easier it's become because I've learned, okay, take a breath. You got to just keep working it. You got to change the angle. It's like the pressure on the locks. It's one of those things. Like I had to switch fingers because for whatever reason, I couldn't get with my index finger. I couldn't get the pressure right. So I had to go to another finger and then suddenly it turned into,
see, and that's
okay.
the benefit of going to a class versus doing YouTube videos is that doing YouTube videos, you're watching somebody else do it, you're trying to do it. But when you go to a class, someone can put their finger on top of yours and say, this is how hard you push on the tension wrench to get that lock to pick. And that's invaluable. So, yeah, that's good observation.
What does the future look like? I know you're always innovating and creating new.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're expanding both tracks, both the wilderness and the urban track. I mean, we have a lot more that we haven't ever integrated into the classes that I think could be useful. So right now we have 8 or 9 urban classes and probably that many wilderness classes. And we just, the classes, once you get to a certain level where you've had 4 of these classes, then we can really start dropping Easter eggs.
Dropping the heavy knowledge and start drinking through the fire hose.
Yeah.
And it's a fire hose that you're gulping from now when you don't realize. And that's the biggest thing is I've noticed this past week of just like all training, coming in with an open mind and not saying, oh, I've been through something like this, It's a whole different ball of information.
We had a guy in class this week who had been to 4 different SEER schools through the military, 4 schools. And, he at the end of class, he wrote me a note and said, thank you for this stuff. I've been to 4 different SEER schools. Nobody ever taught me any of this. He'd been to Air Force, Army, Marine, and he'd been to all 4 branches. I think the Marine Corps has their own SEER school. I know the SEALs have their own SEER school. And he'd been through, and I don't know in what capacity he did that. That's a pretty hard billet to do. But
they don't always ask you to do that.
No. Yeah, you show up for was it him that was telling you? He showed up for what he thought was going to be a training exercise with somebody, and they clapped him in irons and threw him into a cell for SEER training. It was open-ended, no end date, no end time.
Sounds like a good time to me.
But. Oh, yeah.
Anyways.
I'd be crying for my mother.
Well, I'd be crying, but I'd be crying with tears of joy.
It's like everything else. If you talk to somebody who went through boot camp 10, 15, 20 years ago, they go, it was really hard. These guys today have no idea how hard it was. Well, I was talking to our friend again, JC, and he said that when he went through SEER training at Camp McCall, because he was a Green Beret, they literally drowned him. They put him in a barrel full of water, clamped the lid on it, and rolled him down the hill. And when they got to the bottom, they pulled the lid off, and he was drowned. And they had to revive him right there. He said that he woke up spitting water with a master sergeant's mouth on his, and he sat right up after that. But that was how SEER school was.
Well, a master sergeant kiss is a very special one. It's the prince waking the princess right there. You can taste 35 years of chaw and dip and
cigarettes,
coffee,
alcohol,
bourbon. Yeah.
So anyway, it's SEER school. SEER school can be no joke. I mean, it can be quite serious. And yet our school is a completely unique set of skills approaching some of that stuff. So
yeah. Well, I mean, for the avid outdoor person, they already have an understanding. Hey, I go out into the outdoors. There's risks involved. I might want to mitigate those risks.
Sure.
And most people learn the general basics. And they'll go and they'll take instruction or, look at YouTube or whatever. Nobody takes like street smart coursework, and they're in this environment every day.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. People ask me all the time, first of all, do you do a lot of tracking classes anymore? And I don't do very many anymore, because there's so many people out there teaching tracking. There's so many people out there teaching wilderness survival and primitive skills. I mean, lots. I still teach them on occasion, but who out there is teaching you, foraging in an urban environment? Who out there is teaching you places to sleep and hide and lay low in an urban environment? And that's, so we're taking those same survival skills that meant life or death to the Native Americans in this country, and then we're applying them in an urban environment. And frankly, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I'll attest to that. Like, most definitely. This is some of the most interactive training that I've done, well, in a while. My body can attest to it. Most definitely.
You're feeling it today.
Wednesday kicked my ass. I'm not gonna lie. Like Wednesday, I think total I walked. My phone said I walked 23 miles. Now, four of those miles, well, probably 8 of those miles were my own fault for not orienting myself in the right direction.
We tell people on average prepare to go 6 to 7 miles that day. On that day. And depending on the city and depending on the layout that we set up, the course that we set up for them, they can do 3 miles. They could do, I don't know, 20. That's a new record. But 20 miles.
I'm probably exaggerating ridiculously, and it's my phone too. But still, it's
picked you up on the bus or something.
If you're not used to it, and you do 12 miles on concrete,
oh yeah,
your feet are going to be pretty hard. Hard hit.
Well, between just Wednesday and today, like I'm really feeling it.
Right.
And this is the first time I've taken Urban Scout, and I couldn't have been more excited about running around today. Just walking and making,
doing the observation and exercises that we were involved in. They take your mind off how your feet feel.
Yeah. I actually used some of the wilderness tracking to help me with the urban. Yeah. And I actually, one of the other students, when he jumped in the parking structure, the last one, I actually started noticing his footprints where he had jumped over the wall to get into the parking structure.
Wow. That's why we have both sides of the curriculum, but if you really want to be well-rounded, you have to get into both of those sides. You can't just do the urban, and you can't just do the wilderness. You need the blending of the two, because life, that's how life is. I mean, life is go from sometimes urban, sometimes it's rural.
Yeah.
And even being able to transition to both. I mean, look at us where we live. I mean, we all live in kind of the same geographical area. And I mean, Mr. Scotty and I live in more of the urban area, and you live a little more rural, but it's only a blink of an eye, essentially, to get rural from urban.
Well, and you can't get anywhere without going through those rural areas.
Right.
To go city to city, you got to go through some rural areas, and so you need to understand how both of them work. Right. That's the end. The bottom line is that the better rounded your training is, the more effective you will be, and I'm a gun guy, a Second Amendment guy. I have guns. I love them, but what I see is that most people's emphasis is on just learning how to shoot target with their gun, and get really effective shooting targets, rather than all the other skills that go along with surviving. If there's a quote unquote zombie holocaust, shooting will be 1 or 2% of what your time is spent doing.
Right.
You're going to have to know all the other skills, and so
I try to push that when we teach some of our classes of not everything is pew pew. You got to get out of that mindset of like, it's useful to know, and you should know, and you should carry, because I preach it too. You should carry if you can, like that's what you should do. But if you don't have all those other skills to go along with it, cool. You can shoot. That's about it. That's the only skill you bring to the table. With some of the stuff that you teach as well,
Sure.
It turns into, cool, you're my shooter. Now you're going to set at a roadblock, and that's all you're going to do for me. That's all
the old saying is that when you're a hammer, you tend to view all of your problems as nails.
Right.
And if all you know how to do is shoot, then that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, that's all you're going to do.
You're not going to be a whole lot of use to the community in terms of other contributions.
So we're finishing up here in Austin tomorrow. Later this month, we're all going to be reuniting again in Vegas.
Yeah, we have another Urban Escape and Evasion immediately following the SHOT Show. So anybody who's traveling in for the SHOT Show can stick around for another couple of days and get some really fun training.
And that's going to be the 22nd to the 24th,
I'm not
correct?
looking at my calendar, but it's the Saturday following shot, which I think goes Tuesday to Friday, and then we start up the next day.
Yeah, Saturday morning and ending
Monday morning.
Yeah, Monday
afternoon, I should say. Yeah, Vegas is a crazy venue for this.
I'm excited for it because, I've done LA and now I've done Austin, to see Vegas in that other light.
Yeah.
Because I don't spend a lot of time in Vegas. I basically pass through or fly from.
Well, what people walk away from this with is an appreciation of kind of, I've never seen the urban environment through this light before. There's a lot of resources out here. There's a lot of opportunities here. There's stuff I never knew was there, and now I have the ability to access it. So we give you a new set of eyes for the urban environment, and Vegas is a crazy place to do that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it, and
Should be fun.
For those of you that are looking to get involved with that, it's they can find the not only the coursework and the class schedule, but everything else directly through OnPointTactical.com.
Correct.
And do you have you have a Twitter?
I probably do, but I'm not the social media guy. I'm sure I have a Instagram. I'm sure I have a Twitter.
People are working it for you because
my kids will go, Dad, have you ever looked at your? No, I've never looked at that. Oh, well, you have 72 messages. Oh, really? Okay. I'm lucky to get to Facebook Messenger, and so, but Facebook and Facebook Messenger is probably the most effective way to reach me, or my email. Just info@onpointtactical.com.
Well, do you have any parting knowledge and wisdom and experience for the layman's that might be getting geared up to maybe do something like this?
Well, I would say two things: come with an open mind, come ready to learn, and come ready to have a lot of fun. Because as you can attest, having been through it, the classes are educational, they're packed with information, but in the end, they are a lot of fun.
It's about as much fun as I've ever had with my pants on. That's what I like to tell people when they ask me about it.
Yeah. I'll agree to that. But come with an open mind. Like that's the biggest thing is like that doesn't make any sense. Just come with an open mind.
Give it time.
Yeah, give it time, and then everything all melts together, and then it's like, wow, I didn't even think of that, or I didn't even.
Occasionally you get people who, the old saying is, you can't tell anybody something that they already know.
Right.
And so it's really hard to get people sometimes who think they're Joe Tactical or they think they're Joe whatever to come in and say, I'm just going to open my mind up and see what I can learn. And if you do that, I promise you will learn a lot at any of our classes. You're not going to walk away going, well, I didn't learn anything. Man, I knew all that stuff beforehand. I have people occasionally say that. I already knew all that. Really? Oh, that's interesting.
Well, thanks for your money anyway.
Or usually it's, I knew all that, but well, then why did you ask so many questions? I'm a little confused to that. Or why were you not so strong in this situation?
Yeah,
that's the most frustrating.
I knew how to get out of handcuffs.
Yeah.
Oh, really? It took you 8 minutes.
That's still me.
The guys who actually paid attention in class got out in less than 30 seconds.
Right.
Yeah, I know it happens. I'm not making fun of people who. Well, maybe I am a little.
Hey, I got to meet some interesting people and some very attractive ladies as well from being handcuffed to a chair out in Austin. So
if you what he's talking about is that if we catch you, we're hunting you on the last day, as would happen in an escape and evasion situation. And if you get caught, we just handcuff you to the closest inanimate object. And Frost here ended up handcuffed to a bench in front of Starbucks.
In front of God and everybody.
On a major throwaway.
Yep. I was like, have fun, bud. You got pics on you? And he's, yep.
Son of a...
And then this girl showed up, and it took him a long time to get out of those handcuffs.
Yeah, it did. But
anyway, we have a lot of fun. I promise you, this is extremely educational, informational. You'll walk away with a new appreciation for the urban environment, and you will have done so while having fun.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Kevin Reeve, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
It's been a long week, so we'll be ready to get wrapped up tomorrow and head home. But again, we're going to be in Vegas. You guys can go to OnPointTactical.com, look at the schedule, get signed up, and let's all go to Vegas and throw down. And now, Mr. Frost, that he's been through the class, he is now, as alum, a hunter, right?
That's right.
So
he can join in the interrogation process.
Oh, I feel so sorry.
So we do a brief interrogation before you escape to get you jacked up, to get you to control your adrenaline. And we were trying really hard to get his adrenaline up, and I think he just enjoyed it.
He does.
I did squeal a little bit. It was quite fun, and
Well, it's got to hurt to feel good, right?
yes, it does. We won't go all sexual chocolate on you, but yes, most definitely.
All right, Kevin. Well, thanks again.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Before we jump out of here, want to let you guys know that not only do we have the other urban E&E class going on here at the end of the month, 22nd to the 24th, but we're also going to be at SHOT Show. And so for those that are participating in SHOT Show or want to participate in SHOT Show and have been thinking about it, hey, get out there. And if you're going to be there, let us know, because we want to see you and meet you.
And hug you and shake your hand and maybe exchange information.
Yeah. And maybe if you got time, you can be part of the show, because we're going to be recording when we're out there. So,
French fried taters with mustard.
Yeah. I don't know if I could say anymore. I'm so brain dead after when you learn a lot, when a lot has happened.
That's why I said it's like drinking from a fire hose, and then all of a sudden it like all clicks together, and you're like, ding.
Yeah. I need like a good rest. And then tomorrow morning I will be all that much more wiser for having participated in such excellent training.
And we'll be carrying around a bunch more gear for a little while, both of us. And then we're going to be like, I don't need all this.
Yeah, we're going to make it happen.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Let's blow the door and get the hell out of here.
Bye.
All right. Thanks again. And again and again, go to badguyforhire.com and you can find everything that we do there. You can also directly go to patreon.com/oppositional forces, and you can subscribe. Hey, throw us some ducats. Okay. Toss a coin to your witchers, because we need to be able to come out and do more of this and see more people and travel. We got a lot of things in the works for this year, like we talked about from the previous episode. So help us out with that. And that is our Patreon. If you guys have ideas, suggestions, comments, hey, we're on Facebook. We are on Instagram. And those links are through the website. And if you are not already liking and sharing Op4 and oppositional forces, then you suck. So again, if we can, we just want to keep doing this and be as successful as we can. And that all starts and ends with you guys. So we appreciate you. We love you. And we'll see you next time. As Mr. Frost kicks things over in the in the studio. Thank you for listening to Oppositional Forces, Wage War, and Stack Bodies.